So, if you come to one of our previous classes, I usually like to take some time in the beginning of the class to give a little disclaimer. So, I'm going to take this time to say, um, you know, I learned a lot from putting this class together. I did not know until I started researching for this class that you could be certified in specific decluttering techniques. So, I also want to take this time to say I am not certified in any means. I did not know that was a thing, but I'll do my best to explain a little bit what I learned about. I also want to say that I would be talking about two services that I've learned about in some quick research. This is in no way an endorsement or advertisement for those services. I fully want to encourage everybody here to do their own research and find what may best work for them as well. All right. So first off, I actually want to open up with a quick little poll here. If I could get a show. Uh, so I'm gonna launch a poll real quick. So just a quick one just to get everybody started. I wanted to ask, has anyone decluttered before? Just a simple
Yes,
yes or no. Thanks for answering. Yeah,
yes.
great. Okay, so just off the bat, I'm seeing a lot of people who are saying they have decluttered before, so that's great. I also know that in the registration for this class, I know a lot of responses were saying that they need to get started on decluttering or they need to declutter again. So it's always great to see where we're all at as a community in that sense. Okay, thanks for responding. I'll let it go for just a few more seconds, and then I'll end that right there. Okay. All right. I also want to take this moment here to say, while I didn't preface this in any of the emails leading up to this class, I did want to say that hopefully, I hope you all will feel welcome enough and secure enough in sharing some experiences that you might have. But I'll prompt those later. But if not, I'm also happy to share about myself as well. Okay, so let's get into it. So I want to ask just a general question to our audience. Again, feel free to either answer in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. But what are some reasons you want to clear some space or declutter your homes? We've heard a lot of different responses from the community, so just wanted to see if there's any similarities or any new things that we might hear of here today.
Are we supposed to be talking to you?
Oh yeah, feel free to
Oh,
unmute. Yeah, thanks.
for myself, I need a space. I
Need
moved
space.
into a smaller house,
Hmm.
uh, much smaller, tiny home actually, and I did declutter quite a bit. But still, it's so easy to go back to the old way and start buying things and without discarding. And my house is getting too small, and I
Right.
have to learn to live differently.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Yoshi. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I'm also saying I have too much paper stacked,
Mhm.
safety reasons,
Right.
uh, getting older, want to make it easier for siblings should I
Yeah.
pass, cleaning out parent stuff and realizing that I'm leaving too much stuff for my kids. Simple and remove hazards. You know, I want to help my parents and in-laws to start to declutter. These are all great reasons. Yeah, we've heard pretty similar reasons throughout the community. Whether it's some people who are saying, yeah, you know, they want to clear out space because maybe they saw what they went through with maybe their own parents, and they want to make it easier for their next of kin or other people. We've also heard, you know, just in general, wanting space, wanting to make it safer. I'm seeing some other responses. Figuring my boys won't want what I think want to be handed down. Need to prepare. Yeah. So yeah, you know, there's always different reasons, but it's great to at least have that reason in mind. I'm also seeing, oh, some of mine and my parents' things are valuable. Maybe. What do I do to potentially valuable antiques? Hmm. Yeah. So I'll speak a little bit about that later, George. Hopefully, we'll have some answers for you. I'm also saying want to pass my valuables to someone who will not toss the items, right? Yeah. My late mother-in-law lived upstairs from us, so I went through a lot of decluttering after she passed. I don't want my kids to have to go through that ordeal. Yeah. This is some common responses that we've heard. Yeah. So, for anybody who maybe hasn't had a chance to, I wanted to ask, what have been some barriers to getting started or making letting go of things difficult? We're seeing some things of, maybe there's some familial connections to it. Maybe it's a little bit that it's, hard just to get started. Maybe that could be a thing.
For
Uh,
me, it's a pictures, albums, pictures, and the family uh,
mhm.
photographs, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Yoshi. Yeah. I'm seeing a lot, I'm seeing multi-night, yeah, barriers, guilt mindset, right? Of course. It's hard to let go of these things. How can we just let go of them? Sentimental reasons, valuable to my parents, but maybe not particular to that person. Yeah. Of course, yeah. It's hard to let go of these things. So hopefully, I'm also seeing other priorities, heavy lifting for items and boxes. Yeah, physical ability is also another thing. Safety, that's another good reason. Yeah. Hopefully in today's class, we can speak a little bit about these and see if there's some solutions we can find together. I'm also saying it's hard to get started and knowing where to start. Yes, that's also what we've heard. They don't even know where to start with so many things. So let's see if we can answer some of those questions. So first, I want to talk about decluttering techniques in general. So here are some decluttering techniques that actually come from three different women in Japan. So these are Japanese decluttering techniques. The most popular that people may or probably know of is the KonMari method, from Marie Kondo. She had her own Netflix show, had a New York Times best-selling book, and she was kind of everywhere right during the pandemic. And her technique really focused on what sparks joy. There's another one that's also known as Danshari, and this is from Hideko Yamashita. And this was focusing on eliminating clutter. And then another one that was also very popular is called Furukata, which is from Junko Furukata. And it's about changing the view. So we'll get to know a little bit more about these things. So the KonMari method from Marie Kondo, so she asks, when something sparks joy, what sparks joy? And it speaks a lot more to your emotions and connections. So I think it goes into that sentimental value or the guilt process of it, of thinking about your connection to items. And this is a good way to, I think a lot of people use this as a good place to start for those who don't know where to start sometimes. I think they look at items that, they have these connections to, and they have to really see, does this item or particular, thing hold any sentimental value? Is it easy for you to let go of? When you think about it, does the thought of why it's important to you really come to mind quickly? And does that, bring you happiness? Does it bring you like more sadness? That can be one way to get started and start thinking about decluttering. The next one is Danshari. So this one, again, it was more to eliminate clutter. And this was actually a more minimalistic approach, just to have very bare minimum and letting go really of what is unnecessary. So this one is seen as, it could be an effective technique, but it was hard on people's emotions. It was emotionally very challenging because you're really cutting out any emotion or thought of a deeper meaning from your items. But this was something that apparently was seen as very, very quick and easy to, I guess, get everything out of the way in that sense. But it's not always the easiest to do. There's so much emotions and thought behind our items that we keep, and probably keep them for a reason, that it can be a little bit easier said than done, this one. Then we have Furukata. So this one, Junko actually was praised for her idea of focusing on not letting go of things, instead using storage spaces or containers to change how space looks. So that's why I was just changing the view more than anything. This one can, I guess, also be seen as a place to start, but maybe not the end goal, because the whole idea of this really was to make a clearer or emptier space, making it look clean, even if it might necessarily be as clean. She really encouraged using other storage methods, whether it's like packing things into boxes or into storage spaces, and then, keeping it out of sight, out of mind. And it can work if you have the space for it or if you have the means to, rent a storage space, but that's not always possible. It can be very difficult. And in a lot of cases, I think for maybe most people here, maybe that's how it starts, and then it doesn't ever actually get better after that. So there's different there's different thoughts on all these processes. So just as a quick overview of these techniques, would anybody here say they could choose to do any one of these techniques? I see from Gene saying the furikata concept does not work for me. Now I have too many containers. Yeah, that can
Yeah.
definitely be a thing. It'll just start piling up. If you don't have, the means to rent a space, Patty agrees. If you don't have the means to, rent another storage space, it'll just keep piling up. Glenn saying Marie Kondo's method might be a technique to choose from. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And there's no real right answer, but it's maybe just to get an idea of if any of these, speak to you, or how maybe a way to get started or thinking about these.
Mhm.
Yeah. Furikata. Nancy says furikata with regular time to go through and toss things. Oh yeah, that's one way to get started. Yeah, so that's another way we've seen to get started of, whether it's going with the approach of sentimental and thinking about them, or you could start packing into boxes and then maybe having labels for those boxes. And maybe that's where you get started. But again, it can always be easier said than done. Ayako also says, I tend to do furikata, but need to keep revisiting the items since feelings change over time. It's very true. Sometimes you can either grow or that sentiment can shrink over time and it can get less and smaller. It's really all about, what happens in that given moment. Things can change so quickly. Okay. So let's talk about passing items around. So as we continue to amass, more and more, we need to think about who may receive an item next. And maybe you're asking yourself, who would want this? And does anyone actually need this? I think this is often thought around, and I saw even from some of the responses in the chat that people are saying, a lot of sometimes items that maybe were kept for children or maybe like nieces and nephews, they end up not wanting them. So what can we do about this? It's very important to really think about, I saw some responses, people who want to pass down these items to people who will actually appreciate them. So it's always very important to think about, you know, I guess keep in mind that person who you're thinking of. And I guess regularly checking in with them because maybe things do change. Maybe their thoughts change and their feelings change over time. Someone who might want something maybe won't want it the next day. So it's always good to see, is that thought still there? Do they still think about it? Do they still want that item? And will they appreciate it? Okay. Then we're thinking about, keeping these items. So start thinking about what to keep, when to transition out, and think of why is this important? Now, another question that people have been using recently, apparently, is they use this method of asking a question about the item. There's some different, I think, more vulgar ways of this question that we've heard over time, but something that we've heard is when you think about this item, if this item was covered in dirt or, or some sort of filth, if it was just caked in like mud or something, would you take the time to clean it off and then decide to keep it? That's one way people have actually thought about these items. So, is it so important that you would go through your way, out of your way, actually, to do, you know, so much more for that specific item? And then
Mhm.
having known how much, dirt or grime or gross it might be, would you still want to keep it? Um, and sometimes, that can be a way to for think some people think about, and they'll say, maybe I really don't want it if it was that dirty, if it was so used that I would never use it again in that sense. Oh, I'm also seeing Hikari said Swedish death cleaning is something people might be interested when thinking of leaving items to certain people. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so that's a question that people have used as a starter to see of whether to keep something or not. If it was completely dirty, if it was ruined, would you take the time to clean it off or repair it in some way? And is it worth keeping? So I think by this point, maybe some people are thinking, so what do I do with my things and where should they go? You know, what can I do with these things if nobody wants them specifically? So when it comes to donating things, I know that we heard from community members that they don't necessarily just want to donate it to say like Goodwill. They want items to be appreciated. In some responses from today's class, from the sign up registration, some answers were, trying to find a space where to give these cultural items and make sure I get these to a place where they would be appreciated. These are, very important sentiments and thoughts, feelings that people want to make sure are presented and heard and followed through. So it was a little bit harder to find specifics, but we have seen that places like museums and historical societies. So two that we know of off the top of our heads from some research, JANM, so the Japanese American National Museum, they do have an artifact donation site. I know there are some specifics and requirements to that. So it might be, it might not be easy to send everything you have there, but if it has maybe some historical value or sentiment, that might be one thing to consider to sending over. And historical societies. So we actually now have connections through our team here at Cato with the National Japanese American Historical Society. And this is a historical society that has connections to uh, one of our programs team's members, Charlene. Her family is closely tied to this historical society. And, if there's any items that are either pre or during the war era, they're always interested in seeing those items. And if this is something that you like to consider, feel free to send in, an email to their collections manager, and they'll be happy to see if they have photos of the items and maybe a brief description of it too, so that they can maybe move forward with that process and see, if that's something that they can accept in their historical society. I'm also seeing Ikari say, how about a Japanese language immersion school? Um, there could be a chance that some of these schools want them. It's really, it's all on, I guess, individual outreach to check with these places that may or may not want them and seeing if they do have a value or a need for these items. And if so, what specific items might they be looking for? Yeah. And this is, maybe a little bit tougher, but for the, audience members in today's class who are maybe associated with our NSN partners, I did actually want to pose this proposition or maybe a question for those. I know it's always difficult with, time and money and space, but something I thought of for our, community centers or cultural centers is thinking about maybe trying to invest in something like, like a shelf or like a bookshelf, something to display. So maybe that you can, for some items from members, maybe consider putting them on display in your community centers, and then having maybe something with a little description, a card, maybe for those who, just to leave a little legacy of that community center, their connection to that community, and even also their legacy. As we were talking with our NSN leaders and our partners, we hear that, as time goes on, people are aging out and phasing out of community centers, or maybe it's harder for them to join in certain activities. So maybe this is the way to leave their legacy with their connection to the community and groups that they know so well. This is, again, very case by case basis, and it could be a little bit harder, but it's something to think about. I'm seeing a lot of activity in the chat, so give me 1 second while I catch up here. So I see George sent that Jedi Arts, they curate samurai swords. Colleen says sometimes World War II camps could use artifacts and stories. Yeah. I'm seeing from Jeannie, some of those that lost everything in the forest specifically asked for Japanese dishes and Japanese kitchen items. So chawans, owans, and even dolls were appreciated by them. So yeah, uh, the area of Pasadena, and they went through terrible tragedy, but they're rebuilding strong, and hopefully there are ways to help them out in any other way. Thanks, Charlene. So Charlene also put in the chat the nod to the National Japanese American Historical Society and where you can email them. Jean's also saying, don't get upset if orgs decline your donation. They receive tons of requests to accept personal items. Yeah, so, thank you, Jean. It is a process, and, you gotta always make sure that you follow the process. But yeah, this was just a small consideration I wanted to, for just partners to think about or others to think about. We'll go into that later. So, all in all, is there a correct way to decluttering? You know, as with most things in life, I don't think there is a correct way to declutter. It's a very personal activity to do. So, I'd say do what is best for you, both physically and mentally. Um, to give you an example of my own, way of, I guess, decluttering is I would say that I think I do a mixture of all the three methods that we talked about today. So, I think, I'm not thinking maybe I wasn't the best person to give this presentation because I sometimes maybe hoard things or keep too many belongings. But, I definitely have moments where I have to realize, okay, I don't think I need any of this stuff that's on the table and I can immediately get rid of it. Other times I think of, specific items that I say, I don't think I'll ever get rid of this item for a specific reason. Probably, usually like sentimental value, maybe something connection to my family. And of course, I will, well, so when thinking back on it, when I had left for college, I realized, I guess, how little I had to myself because I was able to pack up everything of like my own things in one small box so that I could give my room to my younger brother and he could have his own room. And I kept all my things in just one little box. And that way I can keep it and keep it out of mind. Um, but as time goes on, it's so much easier to just to collect more things. As Yoshi said, sometimes it's hard to not keep buying things and always have more things. In that sense, I also give credit to my wife. She definitely helps with cleaning as well. I would say I think I'm more more in depth when it comes to cleaning, but I would say that she is much more uh invigorated to clean more often. So I think I don't want to clean as often, but I clean very, very efficiently. But she cleans way more often, so that's how we keep a clean space. But yeah, that's another thing to think about too. Maybe as we heard from, from some members in the community as well, maybe cleaning or decluttering is not just for yourself, but it's for others, I do it to keep a happy household, because if not, it'd be a tough, tough life to live for me. Uh, Gene also says, trying the 90-90 method. So use it in 90 days, or are you going to use it in 90 days? And he's also saying that's been a total failure for him. So, some people it works and some people it doesn't. There's always different ways to go about it. Um, yeah, I have some things I was going to share, but I can wait till a little bit later in the presentation to, share about items that I actually took the time to look around my house and see what definitely I don't think I would ever get rid of, and items that I will more than likely get rid of right after this presentation because I don't think I'll ever need it again. Okay, so talking about preserving culture. So again, this is a question for, the entire audience, and feel free to unmute and speak or keep responding in the chat. But, I wanted to ask around today, so what does preserving culture mean to you? What might it look like? Or, yeah, you can go ahead and share some. Oh, okay, so we have honoring our heritage. Thanks, Claire. For Jean, it's, family culture. Yeah. I would definitely agree with Jean and Claire, I guess, both, honestly. Um, I would say that preserving culture to me also means a lot of holding on to things from my family and making sure that, not just things that they might give me, but um, our family history. Oh, thanks, Dan. Yeah, at the same time, exactly. Preserving family history, family trees, historical records of birthplace, dates of death. Yukari saying passing down personal family stories along with an item. Having a thing is nice, but it's really only meaningful if you know the history. I would very much agree. Glenn also says passing on ideals and values held by ancestors. Yeah, yeah. I would absolutely agree with all of these. So thank you everybody for sharing that. Yeah. Got to know that we're all, around the same boat. Nancy says also important items that remember those who have passed. Yes, also incredibly important. Okay. So yeah, not to just repeat myself, but again, I do think preserving culture can mean so many different things depending on the person. And I don't think there's really any correct way to do so. I think whatever works for you and whatever you do to honor those who you love and your culture is, that's always good enough. But I want to speak a little bit of here are some ways that I wanted to share about that, I think I do personally. Okay, so this one, not specifically these, but again, this is the service that I was mentioning. So if you have those home videos and old photos, and maybe you want them digitized, so maybe you don't have, so many albums, photo albums, and also with photos, sometimes they can start to fade and they can, get damaged over time. So these are two services that I looked up, and just again, these are two services that help with digitizing home videos, old photos, albums, stuff like that. Legacy Box is one where you kind of just send them in and they'll send you back, like a DVD or a USB digitized form of these albums, photo albums, and videos. And iMemories is another one. I know some people like iMemories because I believe they have an app. So this app is then, they'll send you like either a USB or a connection to the app. So if you have maybe like a smart TV, then all those are then saved, and then you can save it onto whatever, electronic or application you have it on. Um, I did want to also again, say this is in no way an endorsement or an advertisement for these ones. These are just ones that, I found when looking up. Um, I personally don't use these, but I am lucky enough that I have a huge family, and in my family, there is someone who is tech savvy enough. So we have a bunch of old family videos, home videos, and photos. And so one of my cousins, actually, she takes her time every year to digitize them. So actually, um, this past February, or usually every February, we go to all of my cousins and I, we all go to one house and we just rewatch home videos. And these are all home videos from, when before any of my cousins were born, or, they're videos that like our parents took when they used to have just like handheld cameras and recorders. And so that's one way to think about. So again, not saying to choose these ones, if you're lucky enough to know somebody who can help with, digitizing these things, it's always better. As far as, reviews for both of these, I've seen both good and bad reviews for both companies. So again, I encourage everybody here to do their own proper research and see what service may work best for them and fit their needs the most. I'm also seeing from you, Cuddy. If you have an interest in tech or you have a young person in your life who is tech savvy, the public library has a memory lab where you can digitize your family media. Oh, thank you, Cuddy. That's very cool. I did not know about that one either. So that's very cool. There's a memory lab at the public library. So now I want to take a time to just ask a question. So would anyone be willing to share about an item they may have around them? Now, again, I said, I want to preface that, this wasn't brought up. So if nobody has anything that's around them that, or maybe they don't want to share, that's totally fine. I can share some of my own items. But if anybody is willing to share about, an item that they have around you and you want to, you could let us know the significance around that item, or if you can't, maybe that's a way to think about, maybe you can get rid of that item that's, nearby. I think it would be hard if anybody had anything around them. So, oh, let's see that. Oh, a Buddhist shrine at home. Oh, thank you, Lily. Gene says he has his dad's watch, and no one wears watches. Got it. Tom is saying a war trophy from his dad from World War II. Swastika flag with his buddy's autographs. Jeannie says lots of Japanese items still in boxes and binders of collector cards. Yeah, definitely a lot of those going around. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would never ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't. So I also have some items here, like I said. So this first one, it's really small, but it's a tiny little globe. It's just a little globe. I don't know if you can see. Oh, there it is. So it's a tiny little globe. I got this from my grandparents when I was 3. They gave one to me and my cousin, who's also my age, and we have both kept it ever since. His was red, mine is black. And I always like it because my grandparents have been very fortunate enough to travel. I mean, mostly their whole entire lives. Also, a little disclaimer, sorry if you've never been to a class put on by me. I love talking about my family, so I'm always going to talk about my grandparents. But they gave me and my cousin this when we were 3, and it makes me think about all the life adventures and
Yeah.
explorations they've got to go on. And it also makes me think, whenever I think about it and look at it, it reminds me to be just as venturous as they are. And so that's one reason why, I'll always keep that item. I also have some items that I'll probably get rid of. So in looking around, I also want to share. I have this pair of old glasses. I recently went to the optometrist last year in August. I think right before I had this job, so last year in August. I have 20/20 vision. I think these glasses are from the second grade, and I don't think they fit me anymore. They're caked and covered in dust, and I truly don't know why I have them. So I will, make the move to get rid of them because I don't think they'll ever help me read.
Good.
Um, I'm gonna just share two more things. So, I also see some more things from the chat. So I see, oop, sorry. George says also some samurai swords, Nitsuke art. Jeannie says Lily Obuta-sans are usually accepted by the temples for adoption. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Jeannie. And Nancy says she has a Japanese war flag somewhere. Great. Um, yeah, I have two more things to share real quick, and then we can jump back into it. So, I have a another thing about me. If you haven't been to one of my classes before, I'm a huge nerd, and I loved video games. And I actually got to play video games professionally for a little bit, where I won money for playing video games. So back when, at one point, all of my cousins and I actually would enter into tournaments as a team together. And so I actually have this old customized controller that my brother got specially made for me with my favorite colors and my name on it. And this is a super outdated controller now, but I will probably always keep it. I might not ever use it for a tournament again, but it's something that I hold very dearly to me. It's something that growing up, he's my older brother. We grew up in a very interesting environment where we would fight a lot, but now I'm safe to say, especially with this present, we're great friends, we're best friends now. And so it's always nice to remind myself of, the strange times that we went through as children, but great times we have now. And then something that I can probably get rid of is I have one more item. I have this is a giant, it's going to be harder to see, but I have a keyboard here. This is a very nice keyboard that I have as a backup in case my other nice keyboard breaks. But realistically speaking, I take very good care of my keyboard, so I don't think I'll need another one for a while. I kept it for a little bit because it was a prize I received from winning in a tournament. Actually, I got gifted a full keyboard that I think at the time the retail price was like $135 or something like that, and it was a really great accomplishment. And I've since won a lot more things, and I've gotten rid of those things. So I think I can get rid of this one. This one was kind of like one of my first trophies, so it was nice to have, but. I don't even look at this thing anymore. I don't think it really holds as much value anymore. So these were some things that I used today to think about and we'll start making some moves after this class effectively. All right. So I do want to talk about preserving memories, and doing it yourself. So while we have, we talked about those services that will help digitize, whether it's photo albums or old home videos, take some time to consider what items you have a lot of connections to, but may want to start getting out of the house. Oh, I also see Nancy said she has a lot of computer cords for old computers. She's keeping them thinking that she might need them to use them for something else. I have many cords that I've also gotten rid of because I always think, what if I need this? But I have so many backups that I don't need even more backups. Jeannie's also saying, hearing your list, I realize I have all old computers, Apple stuff, and all the floppies that came with them. And I also have a large bag of cords. Yeah, I think some people just have those large bags and maybe closets full of cords that are obsolete at this point. So, things to consider. Um, but yeah, when it comes to preserving memories, another thing I wanted to encourage today was making video diaries. Taking the time to you know, if it's hard or difficult, especially with space, to keep some items, consider making a video diary. If you can't find somebody who does want to receive this item, but maybe it is, a high time that this thing has to go. I thought of making a video diary with this item, explain to the camera for future people to see, why this item was important, what it meant and that they just couldn't keep it anymore. But that way at least it's preserved in some form. So yeah, preserving culture and memories can be more than something physical. Um, it can also be like sharing a meal or sharing, food. You know, um, there actually is a connection to your olfactory senses and your hippocampus. So smells and memories are very highly, intertwined. So sharing a meal with loved ones that made for you. Um, there's also says I take pictures of things before giving them away. Yeah, that's a great way to do it. Yeah, that's a really great way to make sure that you have that, ingrained and remembered. Yeah. So, yeah, while we think about, things like sharing memories or getting started with other things, I did want to take some time to share with you, again, in preparation for this class and also for other classes I've got to put on for Cato. I actually did do some of these things. So I got to make video diaries with my grandparents. Um, and so I want to share some of those with you. This is a disclaimer also. My grandparents speak only Spanish and Japanese. So you'll see mostly just my grandpa talking. And he's only speaking in Spanish, but I'll take time to translate after the fact. So if you'll indulge me for just about 2 minutes of some videos I want to share with you all. Okay, so here's the first one.
Pero para hacerlo agradable, lo cocinaban así,
Un
durante
día
horas y
antes,
horas.
horas y horas.
Entonces a la hora que tú lo comes, ya está blandito y sazonado con soyu, con miso.
Right. So that was one video. So that video is actually a little bit of what I was talking about here about sharing a meal. So we got time to ask my grandparents about, specific meals that they had in their childhood. And, if they've ever, thought about making that for us, their grandchildren. And in that, he was saying that, there are a lot of meals that weren't as fancy or as heartful as meals that are prepared now. But, that was one of his favorite dishes that he's explaining about actually. And it continues.
Pero
So
para hacerlo
let
agradable,
me uh let me go to this next video.
podemos agarrar un día y almorzar pata de chancho nada más, con cibuy mami. Más que cibuy es una verdura japonesa que parece un zapallo, pero blanco.
¿Como daikon?
Pumpkin, pero blanco. No.
Oh, pumpkin, pero blanco.
Pero blanco.
¿Cómo se llama eso?
¿Cómo escribe? Shibu, con S.
Shibui. S-H-I.
Creo que
Ah,
dice,
Shibui. Ah, hi.
yo creo que es en joven, ¿no? Shibuya.
So this one he's talking about so he's talking about another dish that he wanted us to share, shibui. And actually how he started off in this video is he's saying, one way that we can preserve our family memory and our family culture, and the foods that we've had is we're gonna have a day where we'll invite all of our grandchildren together and we're gonna eat these meals that our parents made for us and share it with you guys. And we want you to learn how to make it and so that you can enjoy it. And he actually goes on to explain, yeah, that, before that, they never thought of making these dishes for us because they thought maybe we wouldn't like them. But, we went out of our way to learn about, what these are so that, we could enjoy them, regardless of whether we like the dish or not. Getting to share this meal that they had as children also meant a lot to us. I have, oh, sorry, just I think one or two more videos left.
El melón de invierno. Ya. Sí, sí, sí. Esa fruta no, para mí es verdura. Ajá. Con la...
Oh, I'm seeing some people are not seeing the videos. Our team, is this video showing? Just want to make sure. Okay. For those who maybe are not seeing the video, it might be stuck on speaker view. So maybe change the view if possible. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and play the video again.
Pata de chancho.
Como bastante nabo y como.
Como la pata de chancho es fuerte, sí. Eso como es bien suave, entonces ¿cómo se llama? Amalgama los gustos muy bien, ¿no?
Sí, sí, porque estoy viendo que yeah. So this is him just talking about food and, how to make it more hearty and flavorful for the family. I just like it because also you can hear my grandma speaking in a little bit in the back. You probably won't see my grandma too much on videos. She doesn't like being on video, but it's nice to see that they have them both there. I also want to take this moment to show this is a little bit of, my grandparents' house as well. They keep it pretty clean for the most part, but as you can see, they actually have a little cabinet storage thing right there, and I'm already seeing many, many cords that I know for a fact that they have not touched in at least 10 to 15 years. So, they're also getting their started on decluttering as well. Okay, and I think this should be the last video, so almost done. Sorry about that. I just like sharing these.
Todavía. Y con una de esas cosas llevó y ahí cocinaba tu guachan la comida. Subimos toda una camioneta y comenzamos. Íbamos a 60 kilómetros por hora. ¿Sabes lo que es eso? Sí. ¿No? Y caminar, ida y vuelta 20.000 kilómetros. Ay, wow. Tenía que, según mis cálculos, tenía que manejar 17 horas, ¿no? Descansar 4 horas, ¿no? 3 horas para comer. Y otra vez. Wow. Ese era el plan para poder llegar.
Okay, sorry, that one was a lot of noises going on. My nephew was also in that video in the background. That's the little baby noises you hear. But this one I think was like the most important video I wanted to share with everybody. So here, my grandpa's actually talking about the memories that he's made with his children. That one of his regrets is not being able to do with his grandchildren, but also he said, even if he was in the healthiest time of his life, he probably wouldn't make this journey again. So he explains a little bit about a journey that he took with him, his wife, my grandma, and his four children. And this is the trip that they did every year since his first child turned 13. So they lived in Peru, and they actually went out of their way to drive throughout as much of South America as they possibly could within 37 days. I think because this was their like vacation period from school. I don't know why that was so significant for 37 days, but they would drive close to about 70,000 miles. Uh, I think, and just one half of the journey, where they would just drive in a little camper van, six of them stuffed in there, and they would go throughout Peru, down throughout South America to different countries. And this was before they had made a lot of infrastructural changes to these countries. So there now actually is a tunnel that connects Argentina to Chile. But in that time, they couldn't, that tunnel didn't exist. So they would actually have to climb an entire mountain range and then come down to get from one country to another. And they would just continue traveling that way. And this was him explaining to us that, he's glad that this sentiment hasn't really changed. A lot of my cousins and my uncles and aunts, and even my own family, rather than hold on to, I guess, a lot of physical items, they've always opted more for taking us on experiences and getting to share those experiences. And even better if we can do it with not just the, immediate household, but more families. So we've gone to do many trips with my grandparents and many trips like with my family in general as a whole, where we've just been able to travel and, share in more memories in that way. Uh, and so I'm also saying, yeah, she since I said, I recommend everyone write down the stories for your family or for yourself and for other family members. Maybe there's a place where such stories are collected. And yeah, this is something that my cousins and I wanted to make sure that we did. We wanted to make sure that we had recordings, and also I wrote down basically what he said at the same time while we recorded these to make sure that we have these stories and that we can always pass them pass them along and keep them in in our minds and memories. Um, oh, Alice asks, do my parents live here and they still improve? My grandparents live here. They live in Torrance actually. They lived here since ooh, I am 26. So they've lived here for about 36 years. Yeah. Um, yeah. But yeah, I've had the chance to travel with my grandparents to go to Peru many times and also with my grandparents to Japan. And they got to show me, where they lived, where they worked, and what their life was like in that time, whether it was in Peru or Japan. And I truly cherish those memories, and I like to hold on to those thoughts a lot. Yeah. So thanks everybody for letting me share those videos with you. I'll try to click out of this. Oh, okay. And lastly, this is just another picture. I wanted to also give a screen time to my grandma as well. So the first picture that you'll see on the left is my grandparents' marriage. That's them sending their marriage certificate. And my grandma always makes a joke that she can't believe that her husband was signing it with one cigarette in his hand, as you'll see right there. This center photo I actually took this last Sunday. I was at their house, and this is a photo that we gave them when I turned, I think, 2. You can
Oh,
see my grandma in the middle, and she's holding me and my cousin who were the same age, and these are all their grandchildren.
oh,
And so, yeah, so she's had this picture for at least 24 years. Yeah. And lastly, this is a picture of her on the right. This is from, I believe, I want to say November, where she taught me how to make an Okinawan dish called Goya champuru. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
boy.
And so these are ways that I hold on to these memories more than anything, more than physical things. Yeah.
Nice.
So, in conclusion, I hope we learned about decluttering techniques and when to think about keeping, when to start moving things out, but also, exploring, considering what keeping item means to you and if this can be passed on, what it would mean to others. Help you understand how to navigate the delicate matters of items that may hold more familial or cultural significance. I hope the recommendations and, services that we provided or offered will be of some help. And also, as I just shared with you all, think about passing down some memories rather than physical items, as it's definitely easier space-wise.
Mhm.
Okay. Any last questions or comments from anybody? I'm already seeing some questions. So Donna says, I find talking with my siblings about decluttering helps motivate me. Yes, I would say the same thing, Donna. I think decluttering for me is way more possible to start when I'm talking with someone else about cleaning up. Yukari says, does anyone have any advice about convincing someone that not everything has enough value to keep? Uh, yeah, Yukari, I would say, well, maybe some of the questions that we proposed today might help, but if not, it really is case by case, so maybe trying to explain to them, I guess asking the person, if they can explain to you what value it is that they're saying that item has, because if they can't easily, explain to you what it might hold, maybe it isn't as important. And also, I think for those of us who maybe are holding onto things just in case we might ever need them is also a good way to start thinking about some things to start getting rid of. Jeannie says, do you have any contact with antique dealers that might be able to identify actual values? I do not specifically know of a contact for any antique dealers, but I know there are, I'm forgetting the name, but there are people who put on estate sales who can also uh, give like an eyeball, an
Mhm.
estimate. Mhm. Jean also shared one decluttering seminar I attended. They said your treasures should fit on your dining room table. That's
Mm.
true. That's one way to think about it, If you have more treasures than that, then are they all as valuable?
Mhm.
Yeah, got it. Any other questions?
Brendan,
Yes.
for this, you said that you're going to be able to post this video online for those who signed up for it. Are you also able to include the chat notes? Because there's a number of websites that were in those notes that would be helpful to kind of reaccess.
Yes, I believe in the recordings the chat notes should be available, but also for the links that are in the chat, I'll also include them in the email afterwards.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
And one other thing, if you ever go to like a number of your community Obon festivals or Hanamatsuri festivals, they have at those um, like a white elephant sale. So members of
Right.
that organization, people bring in all kinds of things, and so people can buy. If you're decluttering, you might be able to provide them those, and that's a place where others might be interested in picking those type of things up as well.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I don't know if it, you know, um, goes in line with, finding the right sentimental or like someone who will fully appreciate them. But yeah, there are people who, will always be happy to take them. And I think also a sentiment that we've heard passed around in the community from some older members are saying that, they fear that, younger generations are not as inclined to be interested in these items. But I also want to share that I think it does depend on, specifically what generation, because, I think it's always going to be a little bit harder for the younger kids to, maybe be as involved or as open-minded or as interested in the history and culture. But I think as we get a little bit older, even from community members we've heard, they grew up in that sentiment of, not feeling as proud to be Japanese or Asian American. But as they grew older, they realized more and more how proud they are to be. And I would say, like I don't think I ever fit in the category of not wanting to be interested, but I am definitely always interested in the culture in that sense. So I always like having these talks and saying that, I know a good amount of people, especially my age now, who are more focused and interested on receiving these items. Um, but yeah, if selling or donating to things like that is another option to consider. Another resource or idea to consider. There's actually a Facebook group that's called Buy Nothing, and so
Mm.
this group they really focus on like recycling, upcycling, or giving away items that they no longer use to community members who might need them or would take them in. So that's another thing to consider. Yeah. But yeah, thanks, Eddie, for sharing. Um, I'm also going to read off some from the chat. So I see, find my 30-year-old children are very interested in the culture, but not possessions. Yeah, sometimes it's hard, especially considering space. Um, yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Brendan,
Yes.
curious, when you got married, did you receive any family heirlooms as gifts? Because that might be a good way to get rid of, to unload things. Just attach the story to it.
Right. Yeah. That's very funny. Not necessarily family heirlooms when I got married, but I've said this a lot in my classes. I do take my time to try to visit my grandparents very often. I love talking with them. And very often I will go to them with nothing in my hands, and I
And
will
go
leave
home.
with bags of things. My grandma is very, very sweet like that, and I think it's her way of also decluttering a little bit. I have often gone, and now it's summer. It's quite warm. It's getting a little bit warmer. Like I said, I went to go see her Sunday, and I left with 3 winter jackets. I don't know when I'll need those thick jackets, but she saw them and she was cleaning up, and she said, "Oh, this doesn't fit your grandpa anymore, so you should take it." And I said, I'll never say no to my grandma. So I said, "Okay, I'll take it." And
You're
that's my
helping
way.
them declutter.
Yes, that is my way of helping her declutter. Yes, yes,
Just say
absolutely.
thank you.
Yes, yes. I always say thank you, and yeah, I accept them. Yeah.
I have to
Good,
tell
good.
you, I found the treasure at the general store at the Natsumatsuri
Mm,
at the Venice Japanese Community Center over the
mhm,
weekend. I went in and I found this little ojubako, and
mm,
Mm,
we thought it was made with plastic type of materials, but
mhm,
actually when I came home, it was made with a real wood and it's real lacquered. Not
mhm,
only that,
wow.
it had a little thing on the bottom. It says made in occupied Japan.
mhm.
And
That's
I thought, oh my
valuable.
gosh, it's probably made in 1940s.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's probably the oldest thing I own. So to me, it's really a treasure,
Yeah. That's very cool.
a
Thank you for
piece of
sharing.
history. And I only paid $6.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah.
Brendan, you should try to contact museums in Japan that would be interested in what Yoshi just bought because
Yeah,
Mm,
that'd
the
be a good,
Japanese who come here and they
right,
turn over a bowl in our homes that
right.
say
I think,
produced in
yeah,
occupied Japan. They're going, oh, this is interesting.
really, I never knew there was such a thing. So
Yeah,
quite interesting.
yeah. So yeah, we can see about that. Thanks.
Hmm.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. All right. And as we close out, I will have one last poll for everybody. So hopefully, uh, oh wait, sorry. Okay. I will have just one last question for you. So I'm going to launch this last poll. So hopefully you remember these questions from registering, but if you could take some time to answer as well. So we have, how confident are you in your ability to declutter your space now? And the follow-up question is, how confident are you in your ability to let go of cultural items with historical significance, but no personal connections? And feel free to answer as honest as possible. We like to take this in and really see what the community is saying and how we can better help you guys. And I just wanted to reiterate, thank you so much, everybody, for sharing. Thank you, Lily, Yoshi, Eddie, everybody for sharing so much. This is what really, makes these classes more meaningful and more impactful. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Yeah. I know we're going a little bit over, so thank you so much, everybody. If anybody has to, please go ahead and, make your exit. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank
All right, I'll go ahead and end the poll if I can have my team, get a screenshot.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
everyone
much.
is collecting Shohei stuff, and that's going to become either more valuable or maybe just junk.
Yeah, that's Gene as well. All right.
I just
Um,
had a friends, four friends came from Japan just to just come to watch him.
oh yeah,
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 Mhm.
they really enjoyed it.
yeah. All right. I wanted to say thank you again. Thank you so much to everybody who attended, and thank you so much again. Here are today's donors for today's class. So thank you everybody so much. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
If you're interested in these classes, these are upcoming classes for July. So July is very finance forward. So we have how to properly title your accounts with Carl Kim. He's a certified financial planner and also a certified long-term care long-term care specialist. So that'll be a Tuesday class in July, and it'll be a morning class. So that's going to be from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Mm.
And then later in the half of the month, we'll have a financial planning for long-term care with Yi Chow from the U.S. Bank Corporate Advisors, and it's hosted by Takeshi Yamada, the U.S. Bank Wealth Management. And that'll be same time, 2 to 3.
Thank you.
And we'll just keep going. So we also have I see Julie's just drawing on the screen. I don't know how that happened, but so we also have our Kinky Living workshops. So maybe some people in the audience are signed up. There is going to be one this Thursday, which will be Genki Living Workshops Golf. But if you're interested in yoga, this is going to be our July class. So this will be July 22nd.
Mm.
And this is going to be from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Terasaki Budokan in Little Tokyo. So if
Oh,
you're interested in doing yoga, joining the community, doing some light stretching, go ahead and sign up for that. And also, as mentioned earlier in the class, save the date. We do have a date for you to share with you all. Kiro no Hi's Festival. It's going to be Saturday, September 13th. And this will be at the at Nishi Temple in Little Tokyo. And of course, thank you again so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for the continued support. And if you feel open to it, we all are. Again, thank you again so much for the sponsors of today's class. But if you're willing to support us more, go ahead and check out these to help continuing. So, all
yeah.
right. Thank you so much, everybody. That is today's class. So
Okay.
thank you again. You guys were
Thank you.
wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. I hope this was a good class for everybody.